And we are officially live. Hey everybody, my name is Wes.
And I'm Matt.
Today we're talking about giving.
Donations, contribution statements, everything.
All of these things. We are getting so close to the deadline, Matt.
Yes, we are.
It's January 31st and today is January 10th.
Yes.
If you're watching this in the future, the deadline's even closer, so hopefully you can get all these contribution statements out. Well, before we get started and jump into all the things, just mention a couple of other things. First and foremost, if you're like me, you like to learn how to do things by watching videos, well, we've got a lot of videos for you. You can watch if you ever have a Saturday where you just want to, curl up on the couch and watch a bunch of videos of how to use church management software. Well, you can totally do that by going to our YouTube channel. But there is something better than watching videos, Matt.
Yeah, and by the way, I just dropped the link to the YouTube channel in the chat. And we have a live chat. So if you have any questions or want to introduce yourself, go ahead and jump into that live chat. Join us there while we're doing this. But if you're watching this later, you missed out on the chat, but we still got some really good stuff for you too as well. We have a Facebook group that all of you can join. It's for ChurchTrac users. It's a private group, so go ahead and click the link that I just dropped into the chat. Join the group. We would love to have you. It's a group of thousands of ministers all over the world that love ChurchTrac and love ministry and would love to answer any questions you have about either of those things. So go ahead and join.
All right. Well, when you need to get help like ASAP, I always just want to point out, when you're in the software in ChurchTrac, we have that help button on the top right. Click that help button. From that help button, you have the option to go to our online user guide to review all of our help topics. There's so many. Or you can just go straight to asking us a question, create a support ticket. Our team is very quick to respond. Even in the busy season right now for us, we're still responding to support tickets in about 1 business hour. So hold tight on that. Now, we're going to be talking about a lot, Matt.
Yes, we got a lot planned.
There's a lot going on in the giving screen, and I think to help break it down for all of us, so that way we have a little bit of direction. First, we're going to do a quick kind of crash course of the giving screen, just because there are a lot of people here that this is their first time really getting acclimated to the software. So we want to kind of set you up for success. And then we're going to move into pro tips.
Yes, pro tips. We'll have some pro tips around contribution statements, how to get everything ready and organize it properly and enter it into your ChurchTrac account so that when you hit the send button, everything is ready to go and your people get everything that they need.
And then we'll kind of finish things off with our time of Q&A.
Yeah.
Now, again, if you're watching this in the future, hello future, you won't be able to join us in the Q&A because it'll already be passed, but you can always create a support ticket. But we'll have a time of Q&A in this live stream where we'll we'll answer all of your questions regarding giving. And we're only going to be talking about giving today. We're not going to really be talking about accounting. So if you have accounting questions and everything, hold those for next week's live stream when we dive into that.
Let me drop the link in the chat for that. There you go.
So many links, yes. All right, well, let's dive into the giving, and let's just quickly give you a crash course of the giving screen. So whenever you log into your ChurchTrac account, the first area you want to go to, you see you have these different screens you can navigate to. The giving screen is where I want to go. Now let's just walk through kind of some of the basic things here, and then we'll dive into the more nuanced stuff in the software. So let's say you want to add a giving transaction. Someone has donated to your church. Well, the process of doing that is clicking this add button on the bottom here. And when I click that add button, I can go ahead and I can select a date for that batch. So let's say this is Sunday's donations that I want to record.
Right.
Well, from here, I can go ahead and say Sunday giving, add date, and there we go. I've created this batch date. I can go ahead and I can start adding contributions here. And so from here, I will select this add contributions button. And it's pretty big, you can't miss it, but I just zoomed in just in case you did miss it. But when I select that button, it brings a drop-down menu where I can start searching people. And when we record giving in ChurchTrac, we're always assigning it to a person. So in this case, we're gonna say Ron gave to our church, Ronald Swanson, and he donated $200 to our church. And then I can assign the category, I can mark whether or not it's tax deductible. Just a quick FYI. Anytime people give to our church and they're not receiving anything in return, it is tax deductible. If this is something where someone is paying for an event or something like that and they're actually receiving something in return for that payment, it is not tax deductible, and things that are not tax deductible will not show up on contribution statements.
Yep, keep that in mind.
So I can put in a check number. So let's say Ron gave with check 835, add this contribution, and there we go. Now I can continue this process and add other contributions. And so I can say that Sharon donated to our church and she donated $100 to our general offerings. But let's say Sharon also donated an additional $50 to our building fund. Well, I can split that by just simply clicking this button here, and I can add this as many times, but typically I don't see churches split more than 2 or 3 at most.
Yep.
And so I can put building campaign.
What I see common is like people will give a general offering and then donate to like a missionary that came and spoke.
Yes.
Or to a love offering or something like that. That's pretty typical.
Yeah, and that's all done through categories, which we're going to talk more about in a second to set you up for success. And let's say Sharon, she gave with cash, well, I can do that. Add this contribution. Now, one thing I do want to point out, because a lot of times in our church, we're recording donations in which it's not a person that donated, it's more so like we're recording the donations that got in the offering plate, a bunch of cash donations. So the way you record that in ChurchTrac is actually by creating a person in your people screen, name them something like cash offerings or something like that. And then whenever I go to enter that giving, I can search. And so I already have the person created of cash offerings because all giving has to be assigned to a person. So we have to create a person for that. And this is also important too, because if you have like multiple services and everything, then you'll want to create those if you're actually specifying different services and tracking that as well. And so I can say, hey, we got $560 for our general offerings, and this was all cash offerings. And I can even put a memo here if I want and add that and continue this process.
Perfect.
So pretty fast. Pretty straightforward. Now, whenever we are adding contributions, just to FYI, you can add new people too. So if I can, I'm just going to make up a name on the spot here. I'm going to say, because Matt's sitting right next to me, Matt, and then we're going to say Barrington.
Barrington. That's a nice big name.
Matt Barrington. So let's say this is a new donor. It's never donated before to our church. Well, I can add this name right here. And go ahead and add in Matt's information. So if I have other additional information for Matt, like his birthday or member status, stuff like that, then I can add all that in here. And so then whenever I click submit, I've got that person added in. And
nice.
Then
Perfect.
The donation. Easy. Yeah, pretty quick, pretty straightforward. And I can say cash and then add that contribution.
And that added that person to the people screen. So now they're in the database, in the directory.
Yep.
So that's all done in one step rather than 2 steps.
Yes, which I love. I don't like to bounce around all the time in software. So to be able to have all of it right here, it's so great.
That's kind of like a pro tip. We could have put that in the pro tip section.
We should have, but we wanted to limit it to 7 pro tips because 7's a great number.
That's a free one for you guys.
Yes. Now, kind of moving on past just like adding contributions, there's a few things I want to point out. So whenever you select a giving batch date, doesn't matter what date, this actions button actually lights up and gives you the ability to click it. And so when I click this actions button, I have a few different options here. And so this actions button, I can edit dates, I can delete a batch, I can create a deposit, view a batch report, export to CSV, import contributions. There's so much going on in here. One thing I want to point out is the importing contributions. And in fact, the chat's still open, and I'll ask the question in the chat. Are you still needing to add your contributions into ChurchTrac for 2023's giving? I know that was a long question, but maybe Matt can make it shorter somehow. But yeah, are you still needing to enter all of your donations from the previous year so you can generate your contribution statements? As I sip my glorious cup of coffee. Cheers, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Man, I love coffee so much. It's what keeps me going sometimes.
America runs on coffee. We run on coffee anyway.
So let's see. I'm just kind of curious how many.
Kelsey says, no, all contributions have already been entered. Linda, Kim, and Joy all say no. Tamika, yes, still entering 2023.
Okay.
All right, and then Jill, possibly. Vanessa, yes. Okay, so a mix of you are, and some of you aren't. For those of you that are still recording donations from 2023, you can actually import them. If you've been recording them on, let's say, a spreadsheet, or if you've been using another some program to track all of this and record all of this, you can export that into a spreadsheet and then import that into your ChurchTrac account in this little import contributions menu that Wes is showing you now. Yeah. So that's how you would manage that. If you have Like, this is great for churches that have most or all of 2023 recorded somewhere.
Yeah.
You can just bring it into ChurchTrac and have it all in one system now.
And I'm hoping I saved one person today hours of time because, I mean, even though it is easy to enter all these donations like we just showed a second ago, having to do that for like, let's say 100 donors and they were giving, you know, every week or every other week or something, that's a lot of information to have to input manually. So if you already have a way to export that to a CSV like this, that's going to save you time. But also, we've got a lot of other different companies that we play nice with, so like Givelify, PayPal, PushPay. So if you are using one of those online giving providers, you can actually export the file that they provide you with and drag and drop that in here, and that'll just make your life so much easier. Another feature we have on this Actions button worth mentioning is the Lock Batch button here. And so you can actually lock a batch, and by locking that batch, nothing can be edited, nothing can be changed. In fact, the only way you can have anything edited or changed after this has been done is to reach out to ChurchTrac support. This is a really great way to have like an extra level of accountability at your church. You don't have to use this feature, but I do see a lot of churches that love this just because this really solidifies that no one can mess around with the giving numbers and they have good accountability. And then another thing worth pointing out too is we've got a batch report on here as well. And so I can generate a batch report that creates that slip here that I can use at the bank. So really great stuff there. Okay, so we covered all the contribution stuff, spend a hot minute kind of looking at all that stuff. Now let's kind of shift gears and let's talk about the reports. Now, when it comes to generating our contribution statements or just this whole process in general, one thing I always like to point out too is before we even enter giving, to add your people into ChurchTrac and create your categories in ChurchTrac, and especially for those of you who are just starting to use ChurchTrac for this year because you want to generate 2024 contribution statements, the process is so much easier if you go ahead and add your categories ahead of time, because the last thing you want to do is be creating categories on the fly every time someone gives to a different category when you're entering your donation. So go ahead, create your categories first, add your people into your database first so you're not having to add them on the fly in the giving screen. It's just so much quicker. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the reports. So Matt, contribution statement. How do we get that going?
Well, that's easy. There's actually 2 ways you can get your contribution statements in ChurchTrac. 3 ways, really.
Yeah, technically.
The first way is in the Giving and Pledges screen, the Reports tab at the top. The contribution statement, there's actually a lot of reports here, but the contribution statement is already right there at the top. It's already highlighted. All you have to do is just set the date range at the top to be, in this case, like, you know, January 2023 to December 2023. Once that's done, at the bottom, there you go.
Yeah.
Click the View Report button and presto, you're done. You have all of your contribution statements generated for you. You can then just print this out, put it in the mail, and then rest easy, knowing that you didn't have to create these all by hand.
Yeah. I've worked with so many church leaders over the years that we're coming from like using a hodgepodge of Excel sheets to make all this happen.
Yes.
And
well, they'll record all their donations on Excel, and then they'll take all that information and put it into Word documents, and then, oh man, like I get overwhelmed just talking about it. This is way easier. As long as you're recording your donations regularly, let's say like once a week, then in January you just push a button and you move on with your life.
Now, this is obviously a big one, printing out contribution statements, but we can also send an email to all of our donors for their contribution statements. And so if I go to the people screen, I know this is not on the giving screen, it's on the people screen, but this is where it lives. So if we go to the people screen and go to reports, and then we actually have in our reports, we can go to our giving history report.
No, go to the very bottom.
Oh, my bad.
No, go scroll to the very bottom of this screen. There it is, contribution statement.
For some reason, I saw the giving history and I quickly wanted to go to that. I always do that. But this is where we have the option where you can also print out those reports from here, or you can actually email those reports. And so this is so great because I can send an email to every single individual who gave to our church. And so this will email that particular individual with their contribution statements. And I can pick that start date and end date and select send email now, and it'll send that off. Or I can send it to every family. And so I can say, hey, I want to send out a contribution statement to every single family, and then I can pick the start date and end date and send it off, and there you go. I always recommend just going ahead and sending out your contribution statements via email, even if you plan to send them all out via mail as well. That way, you've kind of covered both bases.
Yes.
But There's an even better way for your people to know how much they gave and when they gave and all the things.
It's way better. In ChurchTrac, you get an app. It's called Church Connect. We don't have time to cover everything in Church Connect and how amazing it is.
Yeah.
We do live streams on this. We've got lots of videos on our YouTube channel. Definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel for all of those videos and anything else that we put out in the future. But your members can download the Church Connect app on their phone after you've done all the work of customizing it, and then log into their account in Church Connect. And that actually gives them access to some new features. In this little top left-hand corner of the app, you'll see that little 3 lines. We call it a hamburger menu. If I tap on that, it gives me the option to go to online giving if I want to make a donation, or I can view my giving history. And from here, as a donor, as a member of this church, I can do what Wes did just a minute ago when he created those contribution statements. I can like select the date range I want to produce this for, and then click View Statement. Oops, that's 2024. Let me select 2023. There we go. View Statement.
And then that's all.
That's it. Like, as a member, I have my contribution statement. The secretary or the treasurer or whoever's in charge of this didn't have to send this to me. And I can do this any time of year, not just in January. So I can keep my records up to date myself. Yep. I can have all this recorded, and I can do this for my taxes when it comes time to do that at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and that's one thing I actually check as a donor for my church is I periodically will log into the app and just check this, make sure that my auto draft went out, just because I want to make sure I'm always giving to my church, and so I can just look at my contribution statement at any time.
Absolutely.
So that is the process of having your people do it. So there's 3 ways right there that people can see their contribution statements, either by printing them out, sending them an email, or just having them do it right in your very own church app. And a couple things I want to briefly mention on the giving screen. I don't want to really spend a crazy amount of time on them just because we want to answer questions too at the end, and also have some amazing pro tips. But that is first, other reports. Yeah,
there's a few things that are still worth mentioning in the giving and pledges. Under the reports tab, there's a number of reports here that will help you understand the giving trends and giving data at your church. You can see giving totals on certain dates. You can even see a summary of like what's been given to specific categories, so you even know what exactly people are giving toward and how much.
Yeah.
You can look at things by date. You can even create the mailing labels here, just to make that even easier for you as well. And then just a month-by-month category analysis. This is all just to help you understand the giving data and giving trends at your church.
Yeah. A question in the chat. How many of you are wanting to do like different fundraisers for your ministry for the year? Or maybe like a new building campaign, or maybe you do a campaign every year for tracking, or not necessarily tracking, but just kind of figuring out, what you can plan for and stuff for your overall budget at your church. Let us know in the chat. Because that's another aspect of the giving screen that I briefly want to touch on, and that is all part of pledges. And so from the pledges screen, you can actually create different pledge campaigns for your church. And as people donate to these different pledge campaigns, it will show how much is received, how much is remaining. It's a really great feature. Highly encourage it. We don't have time to go through how to create a pledge campaign and everything today, but you can watch some of our previous videos that show how to do that. But I see a few of you in the chat are wanting to do that.
Uvarta, Karen, Lisa, Rena, Debbie, all of you, like a bunch of you do these regular fundraisers. So you can track that and actually watch how much people have given so far toward their pledged amount with the pledge campaign. One of you, let me see who it was. It looks like Betsy, you asked if you want to send a pledge amount with it, how do you include that? And I've actually seen this question pop up from a few of you. In the reports tab under contribution statements, we should have pointed this out to you earlier.
Yeah.
There is a little checkbox right above the view report button where you can choose to include the pledge campaign summary. So if you do these fundraisers and you want that reflected on the contribution statement, you can include that there. That's how you do that.
Yeah, and that's a really valuable part of it. So if your church is doing those pledge campaigns, there you go. Another thing this could have been a pro tip. It should have been a pro tip, but we just didn't have enough room for it, so I'll inject it here. One thing we get asked a lot is about in-kind donations.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How do you handle in-kind donations in ChurchTrac? So here's the deal. Matt, can we assign a dollar amount?
No, we cannot.
Nope.
This actually makes it easy, though.
Yes, it does.
You don't have to know or track down the market value of that item. You just enter what they gave, leave the amount section blank or say $0, and that's it. It's up to the donor to know what the fair market value of that donation was and write that off on their taxes when they actually do that themselves.
Yeah. And
so you're not responsible for that. You just enter what it was, leave the amount 0, and move on.
And we've got a great article that shows you the whole process. But long story short, you get your donor, you select them, you put a $0 amount. Go ahead and create a category if you have not already called in-kind donations. That way you can assign all those $0 amount donations to your in-kind category. Tax deductible, I mean, yes, that way it'll at least show up on your contribution statements. And in the memo field, this is where I recommend putting in things like maybe a Yamaha grand piano. I secretly want one, but have nowhere to keep it, nor can I afford one. But a Yamaha grand piano, and then I can select type and then put other, and then add this contribution. That way it'll show up on that person's contribution statement, but it'll still have that $0 amount since we can't actually assign that dollar amount value.
Right, perfect.
So, yeah, it was technically a pro tip, but sort of not, because it's something we do all the time, because people always donate things to our churches, whether it's someone, that's an electrician that wants to rewire the church for us, that would be great.
Yeah.
Or something like someone who is got a yard landscaping company and decides they're going to re-landscape the church and not charge the church anything for it. Like, that's an in-kind donation. So good stuff. Well, we've talked about the giving screen.
Yeah, that was the crash course.
Yes.
That's everything you need to know to lay the groundwork so that you can get all of your 2023 donations in, or at least have everything ready for 2024. Now let's get into the pro tips, though.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah, the meaty stuff. This is where we're going to get into how to actually use some of these features to their fullest potential. First is your donors can set up recurring donations through the online giving option in ChurchTrac. You can also manage the recurring donations from the ChurchTrac account.
Yeah.
On the Giving and Pledges screen, under the Online Giving tab, this is where you would go to create the online giving platform, but you also have that button at the very bottom to manage recurring donations.
Yeah.
If Wes clicked on that, it would have a blank menu because this is a test account.
Yeah, I can't show people's real donation data here.
Of course, but that's where you would go to cancel anything if a donor says, hey, if they fall on hard times or something like that, or they just, a big bill comes up and something unexpected happens and they have to set that aside for a month or two, that's fine. You just jump in there and remove that for them so that it's taken care of.
Or if they switch credit cards and they don't really know how to cancel it, even though they can do it in the app and everything, it's still, a lot of times we'll have donors come to us and say, hey, I have recurring giving turned on. I actually need to turn it off because I need to switch cards, whatever it may be.
Yes.
That's where we do it. But donors can do it as well.
Yes, absolutely. They can go, and David will show the app again, they can actually go back into the app. And if I go back into that, when they log into their account, and if I open up that menu again in the top left-hand corner of the screen, I can then go into the online giving the portal that has been created for this church by clicking online giving. And in this screen, this is where I can enter in, if I'm a donor, I can enter in how much I want to give and what I want to donate to, and I can also set up recurring donations here. But at the very bottom, right above where it says to choose a payment source, there's that little cog wheel. If I tap on that, that's where it'll take me to a list of all the recurring donations that I've set up as a donor. I can delete them, I can edit them, or make any changes that are necessary. Now that little cogwheel, some of your members may not be able to see that or notice it. We're actually going to change this a little bit and make some improvements to make that easier for your donors to manage their donations from here as well. Yeah. So that'll come in the near future.
Cool. Now, where are all my Canadian folks at? Let me know in the chat if your church is located in Canada, because this is something that directly applies to you all. For those of you not in Canada, this doesn't apply to you, but I still need to mention this because we have so many ministries in Canada that use our software. And in Canada, there are a couple specific things you have to do for your contribution statements. So we're going to cover that real fast. And that is adding your Canadian charitable ID number as well as having your signature in there. So to do that, you go to your settings. And then from here, I go to my admin settings. And this is where I can go ahead and insert. And I'll zoom in real big here just in case someone's watching on a cell phone and can't see it. And I'm going to look at the chat real quick just to see if we have any Canadian churches in here.
No one said so yet.
No one said so. It's because most Canadians I've talked to are so polite and nice, and they don't even
want to chime in.
They don't want to interrupt. But for those of you who are in Canada,
Chris said Connect Church, Bolton in Canada. All right,
there we
Chris,
go.
What's up, man?
There's many Canadian churches in here today, and you're the first one to actually speak up. Great. So right here is where you put that in, Chris, if you haven't done that already, and for the rest of you. And this is also this button right here. When you select that, that gives you the ability to drag and drop your signature. I was at a loss for words. Signature. That's where you can put your signature in there. Make sure you update that signature, by the way. Now, if you're not in Canada, you do not want to utilize this feature here.
Yes.
So that is how you do that.
Now, while we're here, though, under admin settings, right above where it says regional settings, there's an option for report settings.
So this is our next pro tip.
This is our next pro tip. This is where you would go to customize your contribution statement. Several of you have talked about, or in the chat, have already asked about customizing the contribution statement. This is where you do that.
Yes.
We already have like a generic message built in for you, but you can make it your own here. You can even choose like the fonts in the report itself. You can choose where things are positioned exactly, and you can also customize the message, like the header and footer messages themselves, just to make sure it fits the character of your church. It has what the pastor wants to say to everybody, and just a solid message of thanks. You can even, like in this case, we just as an example pointed people toward the downloading the Church Connect app in the message itself.
Yes.
So you can direct people to your Church Connect app and tell them, hey, you can download this in PDF format here, XYZ. You know, that's whatever you need to say there, you can put it there.
That's like the pro tip of pro tips, by telling your people to go to the app on your contribution statement. Because let's be honest, I mean, now we're getting deep talks here. There are some situations where, as a church, the contribution statement may be like the one thing our people actually like take the time to read and look at, especially people that are, what do they call the people that only show up on like Easter and Christmas?
Oh,
and
CEO Christians?
CEO Christians, so Christmas
and
Easter
only.
Oh gosh. But seriously, I mean, not only the contribution statement is such an important thing because it shows our donors, you know, how they are giving to our church and everything, but it may be one of the only times we actually get their full attention. And so I highly encourage you and your team to really think through when you're putting in here your own header and your footer and statement for that, that you are very intentional about that, just because there may be some people that you can reach with this that you never get the chance to reach outside of maybe the 1 or 2 times a year they actually show up to your church. Now, one thing I do want to point out here, since we're here, is the fact that we do have to have right here, other than intangible religious benefits, no goods or services were received in exchange for these contributions. This is like such an important statement.
Yes.
You have to have this on your contribution
statements.
statements.
The IRS really wants to see that. Just to clarify that this was tax deductible donations, not transactions.
Yeah, and that's IRS specific, but I have a feeling this is probably like synonymous with most countries where you are generating contribution statements. You need to really show that no goods or services were received in exchange, which is part of the reason why when we generate contribution statements, anything that's I just lost the word.
Deductible?
Non-tax deductible. Those are not going to show up on the contribution statement. So, all right.
Tamika and Shelly and a couple of other people, they've asked this question. We'll go ahead and show them.
Yeah.
They want to know if you can include your church logo on the statement.
Yes.
First of all, before you go to the next screen I know you're about to go to, at the very bottom, you can say, yes, you want to include the church logo on that statement.
Yes.
But Wes, if you scroll back up to the top and then click that first Your Church Info, this is where you load your church logo in your ChurchTrac account. And we're pulling from this file to put it in like your Church Connect page and your contribution statements and a couple of other places. So definitely upload it there.
It's so funny that they were asking about that, because in my mind I was actually about to take us there to show that. Yeah,
Nice.
that's so funny. Which leads us to our next pro tip. And I want to talk about like formal greetings.
Okay.
So make sure that you have a formal greeting in your contribution statement for when you're generating family contribution statements, because this is something I see all the time. So what will happen inevitably is someone will go to the giving screen, they'll go to reports, and they'll go to view the report and have it for family. But what happens is they generate that contribution statement and it's like blank for who it is.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why is because it's a family, it's not an individual, so it's not going to put an individual's name, it's going to put the family name, but the problem is they don't have the family field there. And so,
yes, I see. Okay.
And so to do that, what you do is you have to go to the people screen and you have to go to whatever family it is, and you want to check all your families for this, but go and edit that family's information. and then
Scroll
all the way
Yeah.
down. I have a lot of user-defined fields on this, but we have that formal greeting.
Yes.
And this is right here what is going to show up on your family contribution statement. So if you do not have this information on each family, then it's just going to be blank. And this is, I just talked to someone last week about this. I was answering a support ticket, and they were like, how come I don't have a family greeting here? And that was why.
Yes.
So that's a good one. Another one, when you're entering giving in ChurchTrac, you want to record the entire amount on the giving screen. Sometimes I've seen churches try to subtract the fees associated with online giving on the giving screen. And so don't do that. And the reason why is because, and I know a lot of churches are thinking, well, we didn't actually receive the $100 donation.
We received like $97.30 or something like that.
Which is a shout out too, by the way, for our online giving. We have some of the lowest rates in the industry. For credit card transactions, if you're a 501c3 organization, it's 2.2% plus 30 cents for credit cards. And then we have a flat ACH rate, which is only available in the United States. Sorry, everybody else, but in the US, we have ACH, and that's a flat rate of 25 cents. And so, like, let's say someone donates, $100 to your church via ACH. Well, your church only receives $99.75 because 25 cents of that was a fee. But we don't go on the giving screen and add that contribution. And so, like saying, okay, let's say Johnny Bravo decided to donate, we would actually put $100 for Johnny's donation.
The IRS doesn't care that Stripe took that fee.
Yeah.
They just recognize that the donor gave $100 to the church.
Yeah.
So they allow the donor to write off that full donated amount, even if the church didn't receive that full amount.
Yeah. And our giving screen also handles a lot of this stuff too. And in terms of when you're talking about fees and everything, we actually have features built in with online giving fees that work in tandem with ChurchTrac accounting, which we'll be talking more about next week.
Yes.
But yeah, it all talks to each other.
So we've mentioned this already. It bears repeating. I don't know how to say that phrase. Contribution statements only show tax deductible donations.
Yes.
So if they give toward a donation category that is not tax deductible, it will not show up on the contribution statement. That was actually something that was brought up in the Facebook users group recently.
Yes, I remember
saw that
seeing
comment just a day or two ago. The way you check this though is, Wes, go to the categories tab.
Yeah.
And for each of these categories, just click on one of them. To the right in that little menu where you can customize the category, at the very bottom, you can say whether or not it's tax deductible.
Yes.
So, your general tithes and offering are tax deductible, your love offering is tax deductible, but your poinsettias are not. Like when someone buys the poinsettia, that's not a donation, that's a purchase, so it's not tax deductible.
Well, and someone's just bringing a poinsettia, technically it's an in-kind donation.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but another example too, like let's say your church has like a Wednesday night supper or something like that, and you create a giving category for that to bring that in. Well, that they're receiving food for that, so that's not tax deductible. And if you claim it as tax deductible and they claim it's tax deductible, you could be in some issues with the IRS.
Yeah, to get in the weeds, like the way it works, if you want to get this far into it, you have to know what the market value of that meal is, and then take their donation and subtract the market value from that donation, and they can only write off the remainder.
Yeah, that's
that's the only way. That's all they can write off on their taxes. It's easier just to understand that that's a purchase, that's a transaction, it's not a donation, so generally speaking, it's not tax deductible.
Generally speaking. Now you have one last good pro tip for us, Matt, pro tip number 7, and this one I think a lot of people don't know.
Yes, always archive one-time donors. So if you have a guest that shows up, maybe just a family member from out of town comes to visit their family, they make a donation, they put $50 into the offering plate or something like that.
Let's do this in real time.
Okay,
so I'm going to create
perfect.
why not? So I have this batch giving date, and I'm going to add this person in. In fact, I'm going to say this person is Johnny Not Bravo.
There we go. All right, so Johnny Not Bravo came with his brother Johnny Bravo and I made a donation, just a one-time donation. Go ahead and record that person, add that donation, make sure that you have the record of that income, but once you're done recording their income, go back into the people screen, find that Johnny Not Bravo, I love it, there he is, and archive him. The reason why we recommend this is because for all users of ChurchTrac, unless you're on our unlimited tier, you have a limited number of people that you can add into your ChurchTrac account before you're forced to pay a higher price, like you're pushed into a higher name tier. Archiving names actually don't count towards your member cap. You can archive as many people as you want. The worry, though, that we see like church leaders have, and this is what makes them ask questions and why we're adding this as a pro tip, is because if they're not on the people screen, how are we going to get their contribution statement to them? Well, any donation made during the year, even if you've archived that person, we will send them you'll get a contribution statement for that donation that you can send off to them. Yeah. So go ahead and record the donation, just archive them right after so that you don't have to be pushed into a higher price tier, but they can still get their contribution statement.
Yeah, we don't want you being in like a 500 name tier when you only need to be in a 250 name tier just because you have a lot of one-time donors.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought that a company isn't trying to nickel and dime their users, but actually show them how to save money on their own product.
Yeah, who'd have thunk it?
So yeah, that's a big one. And that's one I think I encounter at least a dozen church leaders every year working one-on-one with them that don't know they can do that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great pro tip.
That's a very good pro tip.
There are so many other pro tips I wish we could talk about because I have so many things floating around in this cranium.
Well, we've already got a bunch of questions in the chat.
Yes, we do.
What we're actually going to do is we're going to close down the chat and then we're going to open up a live Q&A where you can submit questions and we'll put them up on the screen, we'll read them off and we'll answer them as we go. And as people add questions, if you see somebody ask a question that you have, you can like give it, I think, a thumbs up or something like that. You can upvote the question. So it prioritizes it. So go ahead, we're going to shut down the chat and we are going to open up the Q&A. So I'll disable the chat.
And while all of you,
open up the Q&A.
While Matt's doing this and you all are now going to start typing up your questions in our Q&A, I just want to take a brief intermission. Just for those of you who are watching the replay of this live stream, obviously you cannot ask us a question live because this was done maybe a day before or a month before, who knows. But I just want to remind you, you can always create a support ticket, reach out to our team by just clicking that help button in ChurchTrac and create a support ticket. We'll get with you very quickly to help you out. And also, we have a great resource on our YouTube channel where you can check out all of our videos that we post on how to not only use the giving screen, but just everything in the software. And again, a special shout out to our Facebook group. It's just such a great community.
It's a wonderful community. We love that place. They're very helpful. If you ever have any questions, somebody there has the answer always. So go ahead and request to join that group. All right, so let's get into the Q&A. Charles asks, when I email contribution statements, a report tells me that several were not sent, no family email. I'm so glad you asked this, actually, because a handful of other people in the chat were talking about sending emails and how to know. Well, what happens is you get that report that you mentioned where it'll tell you that it'll list out who received it, whose email bounced, and who doesn't have an email on file. So if you get that report, you can then go in and add email addresses to those people if you know what that is, or you can just go and print off contribution statements for the people that didn't receive it.
And this is also a good time. I always recommend to go through your data of your people. This is a little bit before spring for spring cleaning, but just quickly look at your people's data, generate a report that includes their email address, and just quickly eyeball email addresses and see if you misspelled Gmail or something like that. Because that happens all the time. Where like you'll punch in someone's email, but you'll put like Yahoo with 4 O's instead of 2.
Or Gmail instead of Gmail. I've done that.
we see Gmail, we see Grail, we see all these variants of Gmail. So double check you have the right email so that way you're not having that happen to you. All right, next question here.
Can you reactivate an archive name? Yes, that's the whole reason we created the archive option, as opposed to deleting them. We recommend always archiving instead of deleting just because that archive name doesn't count towards your member cap in the first place. And if they ever return to the church, you can just reinstate them. Easy peasy.
And I'll show that real fast just because it's so important. On the settings in ChurchTrac, go to your admin settings, and from here
we have. Oh no, that's been moved. It's in the people screen.
That is right. It is.
I forget that too.
Screen.
We used to have it. Where Wes was trying to show you.
View archive names. And again, just because I was flying, the actions button on the people screen, you select that, and then view archive names, and then it brings you right to there where you can go ahead and you can search for that person too, and you can restore that person if needed to.
Yeah, whenever Johnny Not Bravo comes back, you can restore him.
Someone in the chat's probably like, who's Johnny Bravo? And then other people are like, oh my gosh, Wes,
Yeah.
why did you use that guy as an example? Okay, next question here, and this one's from Doug.
When we send statements via mail, our pastor likes to send a thank you letter with the statements. How do we do that with emailed statements? With emailed statements, if you're emailing it from the people screen, you're not going to be able to customize that message. That just is sent out as an email with that attachment from the church. If you want to send a letter, you can do that by mail, or if you want to send something more personalized, you can then follow that up on the people screen under the messaging tab and send an email to everyone at your church there. It won't be attached. It won't have the contribution statement attached, but you can still get that message out to your people that way.
Cool. From Julie, and another person upvoted this. So if a member donates meat to the church for their advertised dinner, is that donation tax deductible?
Man, I want someone to donate a bunch of meat to my church. That sounds like a cool donation.
Yeah.
For the person that provided the meat, yeah, that's a tax deductible donation for them. They can, like, whenever that's recorded on the giving screen, just write that person's name in, leave the amount $0, and just enter that they donated a bunch of meat. And that person will just have to keep their receipts to know what the market value of that meat was when they write off their taxes.
Yeah, and that's on them always.
Yeah. Yes.
As a church, we always put a $0 amount for in-kind donations, but that person, that's between them and the IRS or whatever country we're talking about here, since this isn't just a U.S. specific thing. Okay, Betty Boop.
Betty Boop? that goes way back. I have a married couple who do not file together. How do I only show each individual giving? In both the reports that Wes showed you under the people screen and in the giving screen, you have the option of producing contribution statements for families or individuals. So that's how you can get divided contribution statements for married couples that don't that file separately instead of jointly.
All right. Question here from Jill. Can you search for one-time donors in 2023?
So for one-time donors,
I don't know if there's an easy way to do that in the software.
No, that's a good question.
That's a really good feature request.
That is a good feature request,
yes.
Jill. If you ever have an idea for what you would like ChurchTrac to do and you can't find it in the software, just click that help button, create a support ticket, and in one of the options for a ticket, you can say you want to make a feature request. We read all of those feature requests, I promise. So definitely submit that to us.
Although I will ask, the team, the whole support team is watching this thing as we speak. Maybe there is a way to do that. We just don't know. If there is a way to do that, team, I'm looking at you, team there. Can you text me real quick? Because I'm pretty certain we're right, but I just want to double check.
Yeah, David is saying tags and smart lists. So yeah, if you know that person's a one-time donor, then you can create a tag for one-time donors and add it to their profile. That's the only way that I can think of that would work.
But that's a great feature we need to add to our software. I'm going to go ahead and speak it into existence. Our developers are like, geez, Wes. All right, next question from Joy. Joy is asking, can you do a search for records that have an empty family email field or an empty formal greeting? So what I would do in this situation, Joy, is I would create a quick custom report. And have that custom report with the specific fields that you're looking for. So that way when you generate that custom report in ChurchTrac, you can quickly see, oh, these are all blank. I need to go ahead and update these. And you can,
Perfect.
I mean, that probably only take you about 30 seconds to create a custom report like that once you know what fields you want to use. All right, question from Alice.
When I go into the giving screen, is there something I need to do to not see all the 2023 batches without locking the batch? Locking the batch doesn't make the batch disappear. It just makes it no longer able to be edited. You'll see all those batches. Like if you go to the main contribution screen, Wes, click that contributions tab, that list of batches on the left, that will always display there. And it's only showing you the most recent, I think 7 or 8. Most recent,
yeah.
And then you can open up to show all the batches to search further into the past.
Yeah. All right. I guess a question from Patty.
Do you know if fees for debit cards are the same as credit cards? Yes. We should have mentioned that. Yeah, it's 2.2% plus 30 cents for credit or debit cards. ACH is just the flat rate, 25 cents.
And that's for 501c3 organizations. And one thing I want to point out, just because it is a weird outlier, if someone gives the American Express, I think it's like 3.5%. That's like the one that's out there weird. But,
well, American Express just is that way.
It is.
Always.
I have American Express, and that's something I always laugh about. Question from Jocelyn.
What email will the giving statement send from in ChurchTrac? It'll be your church name at churchtrac.com.
Yeah.
That's the email address.
Question from Janet.
If I import a whole month of PayPal donations, will ChurchTrac record them on the dates of the contributions, or will it record them all on one date? It will actually create separate batches for each date. If you have multiple PayPal donations on one day, it'll group those in a batch, but every date will get its own batch.
Yeah, now, I think that's the beauty of the import too, is being able to, if you have all those giving records for all your people and you go to import it, to be able to pull that in properly like that.
Yeah, what's cool is whenever you do an import, let's just go ahead and pretend real quick like this is a brand new church. Maybe some of you are like this. You've just created your ChurchTrac account. You have 2023 donation records on like an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You want to bring it all in. You don't have to go through and create a batch date in ChurchTrac for each of those days.
No.
You just click the add button once. You can even select like today's date as the batch date, but when you go to do the import, just drop that spreadsheet in and our system will create all of those batch dates for the year 2023 for you.
Yep.
So we will separate everything out, whether you're doing it from like PayPal or taking your own records and dumping it in. It's all quick and simple.
All right. So this is from Alice, and we may need more information, but maybe you can figure it out.
No, this is easy. Is there an easy way to send one contribution by email? Yeah, absolutely. You go to the people screen.
Oh, okay. You're talking about that.
Yeah, you go to the people screen. You click on the name of the person you need to send the email for or the contribution statement for. So just like check their name.
So we'll say
Swanson. Yeah.
Where is he at? I was gonna pick a specific one there. Okay.
Check off their name. Just click the little tick box left to the left, and then go to the reports tab at the very top. Now, Wes, if you scroll down a little bit, all the way like to the left, there's that section for choose who to include. You can send that message to everyone or a smart list, or just include only the names that are checked on the people screen, which in this case was just Ronald. So that's how you would do that. You just check the name, like tick the little checkbox next to their name, then jump to the reports tab and send it to them that way.
Perfect. Yeah, and then contribution statement, select email, and we're ready to rock. Awesome. All right, other question here from Morris.
All right, can we send giving email to a single individual or selected individuals? Yes, that's what we just covered. You can like check off their names, and you can do this for more than just one person like what we just demonstrated. You can check off multiple names and then send a contribution statement for just that person. All right, can we use Bank Zelle QR code and add it to online giving? Not seamlessly with ChurchTrac. In other words, like we have that integration with Stripe for the online giving portal. That's what gets automatically reported to your ChurchTrac account. You can take donations from other platforms.
Yeah.
Like you're not limited to our portal, but those are going to have to be recorded by you in the ChurchTrac account, whether it be through an import or by manually typing it in.
Yeah. Did you write a blog post on Zelle a while back?
I just updated it today.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. I just actually updated it today. Zelle is cool in the sense that like it has no fees.
No fees, yeah.
No fee. There actually are fees. That's the tricky thing about it. There are fees. It's just the banks are paying the fees for now.
Yeah.
But Zelle exposes your church and your members to fraud and a lack of proper fraud protection that like the standard banks would be required to cover. Yeah. So there's risks. Just be aware of that. Definitely check out that blog post that I just put out earlier today to learn more.
All right. So Chuck has a question. How can I watch this video again? Chuck, it'll be on YouTube, later on. Yeah. All right. Betsy, can you email statement that also has a pledge amount on it? So far, I believe that you have the snail mail them. Yeah, you can email that. No?
Well, no, not from the email section. Can you include the pledge section? That's the thing that she's getting.
Yeah, I see.
Only the snail, yes, only the printed option gives you the ability to add the pledge amount or the pledge section to the contribution statement.
Yeah.
If that's something that you feel like would be beneficial, make a feature request.
All right. Tamika, is there a way to import bank giving done with Zelle?
Yes. Thank you for asking. I saw that question in the chat. We just didn't get to it before we jumped into the Q&A. Yes, you can do that import. It's what you would do is you would go to the Zelle account or the Cash App account. They should give you the option to export all of those transactions to a spreadsheet. If they give you that spreadsheet, you can then import that, like just drag and drop that spreadsheet into your ChurchTrac account to do that import. We do have instructions, that little blue link at the very top that says Our Instructions, that show you exactly how that spreadsheet needs to be formatted. So you may have to move some things around, like just kind of drag and drop some columns around, rearrange the furniture of that spreadsheet, and before you can drop it in. But check that out. Robin asks, when entering gifts, will archive names come up in the people search? No. When you're recording donations, an archived person will not appear if you've already archived them. You will have to unarchive them to attribute any new donations to them. I'm pretty sure, I'm like 90% sure on the answer to that.
Double check with support on that.
Yeah, reach out to the support just to check me on that. But I'm pretty sure if you archive them, they don't appear in that little drop-down menu on the giving screen.
Debbie's asking, can a person who pays a church bill claim it on their taxes or count it as a contribution? Reach out to our support team on that, because I want to know more information about like how that looks and
everything. My inclination is to say yes, but there's probably like a right way to handle it to make that possible. So reach out to the support team.
From Pat, when sending emails from ChurchTrac, is there a place to see what was sent and when?
For emails, you can go to the messaging tab on the people screen, and it'll show you some bulk emails and like a batch or a bulk email that was sent and when.
For contribution statements, it will actually give you a report. This is something we don't test as much just because this is more of like a live data situation, but it will show you a report of every email which it was sent and every email which did not get it because it was bounced or something like that.
Or there wasn't an email on file, right?
Yeah. Stacy.
Stacy, we recently did Bank Sync. Awesome. You probably were part of our, maybe you were part of our Bank Sync live stream a month ago. How do we sync Zelle contributions into people on ChurchTrac? So
Zelle's not going to do that.
No, Zelle's not going to do that. Your bank's not going to do that. Well, yeah, like your bank will bring in and show you the transaction. That, however, just FYI, is not then going to be added to that person's profile. You still have to make sure that that donation is recorded on the giving screen. It's only added to the people's profile and the contribution statements from the giving screen, not the accounting screen.
All right, now I want to take a brief moment to just recognize the fact that we have already done like over 20 questions here.
Yes.
And we have 40 more active questions. You all have a lot of great questions. And so this is what we're going to do, is we're going to go into hyperspeed.
Yes.
And we're going to try to answer as many questions as possible. And my goal is to get to every question, but if we can't get to every question, please just create a support ticket and you'll have an answer to your question personally by one of our very own amazing support people within like an hour or so. So let's go ahead, Matt. Let's do this. I'm going to start just going through them and you answer them as quickly as possible. Ready?
All right.
1, 2, 3, go.
Is there a way to get what type of payment was used, other, cash, etc.? Yes, whenever you're adding a contribution, at the very bottom there's a little drop-down menu to select that this was check, cash, ACH, other, or something like that. So you can choose and you can record that check number as well.
Perfect.
Chris, you ask, you spoke about Zelle, what about Venmo? We aren't accepting either, but people have inquired about it. All of these third-party apps, like Zelle, I think is the riskiest, but I've seen people lose money to frauds and scam on Venmo and Cash App, and that third-party app is not accountable like the banks are to cover that money when it's lost to fraud.
Venmo's definitely way better. Read our blog post on Venmo.
We also have a blog post on Venmo, that's right.
We have a bone to pick with Venmo because the reality is it's just not that great for church donations.
Yeah, it's not built for churches.
Yeah, you can offer it if there's like one person that always insists on wanting to give with it and they won't give any other way, then by all means do it. But there's some, Stripe is definitely your best solution if you're using ChurchTrac.
All right, Richard, what is the name of the app in the App Store cannot not find it. Church Connect is the name of the app, but it's not in the App Store. It's a web app, not a native app. So you have to go to the URL and then add it to your phone's home screen to download it. That's how that works. Danielle, when importing from CSV, there are non-members that give. Is there a way to default any automatically added people to active contributor instead of active member? Oh, non-members. I'm so sorry. Okay, they're non-members that give. Is there any way to default anyone automatically from contributor instead of active member? So like if you're doing an import and they make a donation, it's just going to attribute that contribution to them no matter whether you have them designated as a member or contributor. That designation on the people screen is really up to you to manage and know exactly how you want to designate these people.
Yep.
Is in-kind donation and non-cash donations the same? Yes. Thank you for asking, Paula, for that clarification. Can you, Gloria, you'll have to reiterate that question. Alice, what about the questions I put in the chat? I don't think I saved any questions from you. I apologize, Alice. That's going to have to be, you'd have to copy and paste that into the Q&A.
Yeah.
Can Vanco Electronic Giving be linked to ChurchTrac? No. So, kind of. You can't have it integrated with ChurchTrac like the Stripe portal, but you can create what's called a link card in Church Connect that directs people to that other online giving platform. But again, you will then have to either import or record those donations yourself. I just want to make that clear.
Vanco should provide you some sort of file format where you can export to a CSV and then drag and drop that into ChurchTrac. We actually have hundreds of churches that use Vanco for their giving and import that into ChurchTrac all day. So good one there.
Yes.
Chrissy.
If we're entering Vanco deposits manually, how do we enter 100 minus the fee so that the 96.60 matches the bank statement? Again, when entering donations from an online giving platform, no matter what that platform is, you enter the donor's original donated amount always. You don't minus the fees.
This is so big of a deal. Let's just take a brief intermission.
Yes.
So if someone donates $100 to your church, doesn't matter if they donate directly with ChurchTrac Online Giving, doesn't matter if they use Vanco, doesn't matter if they use Venmo. If they say, I am donating $100 to your church, then we have to record it as a $100 donation. The fees, that's something we do internally in the church on the accounting side of things. That has nothing to do with what we record on the giving side of things. So I don't want to be sound harsh about that, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page, just because we can get into trouble with the IRS if we are doing that incorrectly.
All right, James, is it possible to include a link to a letter in the email for contribution that goes over to the donor? Well, like the link that we showed you for, we gave you an example of a contribution statement that direct people to the app. That's not a hyperlink. You can't click on it. It's just a PDF and it's just or a printed statement. So you can add a link, but it's not going to actually take anyone anywhere. They would have to manually type that into their URL. So you can do that in the message, but it's up to you.
Alice, I'd say create a support ticket. Let our team know that's a feature you'd like to see, and if more people ask about it.
So, James, you're asking, what tools are you currently using to present today? Vimeo, Blackmagic Switcher, a nice camera. That's kind of it. A good DSLR will get you a long way. All right, if you donate supplies, say for kitchen tissue paper towels, can I use in-kind? Yes, Karen.
100%.
Yes. Basically any non-cash. In-kind is just a way of saying non-cash donation. So if they donate canned goods for the soup kitchen, or clothing for the clothes closet, or supplies for the office even, all of it. Meat, like we talked about earlier. They donate tons of prime rib. They can write that off on their taxes. That's an in-kind donation. Fill that in as $0 when you record it. But that's it.
Please, because I've actually worked with a church they didn't know that they were supposed to record $0, and they were just going by what their people told them. They actually had a person at their church who was borderline committing fraud, and so he was donating things to the church and saying oh yeah, this is worth this much money, this is worth $5,000, and so the church was writing a contribution statement and had all these things recorded, and so then that person was then reporting their contribution statement to the IRS, and it was actually fraud. So we have to always record $0 out anytime someone gives a donation to us in kind, or else we're not doing it right.
Yeah. Any non-cash donation can be counted towards their taxes, but you file them as $0 on the statement. Troy, if you archive a donor and he or she comes a few times during the year, will the software add all donations? Yeah. Just restore them, record their donation, and archive them again. Let's see. Amy, I missed a step in creating a 2024 pledge campaign entry for the first time for our church and ChurchTrac, so my pledges include donations from prior years, not just the new year 2024 pledged amount.
Unique category.
Yeah, my guess is you didn't create a unique category for the pledge campaign. Reach out to the support team. We can look into it further just to make sure that really is the issue.
Felicia, yes.
Does the app show year-to-date contributions? Yes.
Wondering if I can get a letter documenting my attendance at the training for CEU credit. That's the first I've actually had a request like that. Email me, weston@churchtrac.com, and I can provide you some sort of letter or something showing that. That's fine. All right. Do you treat, this is a very, very good one. Do you treat shares of stock donated as in-kind contributions? My goodness, I love this question. I just can't answer it right now on live air because of other things we need to talk about. Reach out to our support team on that one, and we'll talk with you about that one. That's a good question, and it's actually more common than you would think. Charles.
Once family email is corrected, can I select only those donors to email the report? If so, where are they selected? You may have asked this before, we demonstrated this earlier, but yeah, you just go to that family, click on their, check off the names to the left of their name on the people screen, and then jump into that reports tab to send them their contribution statement. Yeah, so if you get that report and you see a handful of people didn't have an email on file, you can go back in, add it, and then just email just them. So that's how you do that.
How can payroll donations be recorded without manually entering them like cash? Reach out to our support team on that, because we don't do payroll, and that's talk to them. That's a one-on-one question. Tamika.
What if someone makes a donation for new TVs and they provide the receipt? Can I put the amount and is it taxed? No. If they give you the receipt, hand it right back to them and tell them you keep this because you need this when you file this on your taxes, not us.
Yes.
Because again, that gets put in as $0 on the contribution statement. This makes this easy for you.
Yes, it does.
No matter what that physical item is that someone donates, you put it in as $0. It doesn't matter what it is, how much it's worth, you put it in as $0, always. The donor keeps the receipt so that when they go and they take your contribution statement and those receipts and hand it to their tax accountant or whoever, that's how that's managed. You don't have to worry about that.
Now, there is a unique situation. I have to mention this.
Okay.
So there's a unique situation. Let's say someone donates that really nice Yamaha grand piano I mentioned earlier. And this is like a $10,000 piano.
Yeah.
And that person requests some sort of written acknowledgement of the value of that and everything. That's not really a contribution statement thing, even though they will see that on a contribution statement because you need to have that as an in-kind donation. But you want to generate some sort of written letter of acknowledgement with a fair market value of what that thing was worth and all that for that person's record. That's like a whole different ballgame that's not even contribution statement related, but just giving a letter. And we need to do a blog post on that one, actually, Matt, because that's a really common thing.
That's a good idea.
All right. Our church has a weekly free meal for the community. Is donated cash to the fund considered tax exempt?
Yes, so long as the donor isn't the one getting the food.
Yes.
If you're putting it in a fund, then that's a tax deductible donation. You're funding this ministry or this arm of your church.
Chris, how can I unarchive a member? Go on our online user guide and search archive, and it shows you everything. I think we even have a video that shows you. Gloria, can you show a giving report for totals without showing each category? For example, total giving per person.
Yeah. Just go to the giving screen. Go to reports, and don't include the detail section. Uncheck that box. That gives you the report with just the totals without every single instance of a donation and how much and all that. So that's how you get that.
Yeah.
Lisa is asking, please say again how to see a report showing results of the emailed contribution statements if an email failed. We don't want to do that because this is a test account, and if we were to send it, it's to nothing but a bunch of fake emails. So it would actually bounce back everything. But all you do is just go to the people screen, click the report tab. Wes will show you.
Yeah.
Click reports, scroll to the bottom of the screen, all the way, click contribution statements. This is it. Like, this is all you have to do at this point is just click that send email now button. That's all you have to do. It'll send those emails and give you a PDF listing every single person who got it, who it bounced, and who doesn't have an email address on file. We can't show it to you because it would make us look like we're sending spam or something. That's how like Amazon would treat it, but that's what it would do. There you go. So is there a way to print a giving report for just one individual? Actually, this is one thing we haven't shown them. It's going to the people, like their profile.
Oh, yes, there is. Yeah, so if you go to the person on the people screen, so like let's say, Emily, I go to her on the people screen, and if you have to have the privileges to see this, and let me move the text away there so you can actually see what I'm doing there. But yeah, on the people screen, you go to their profile, and then you go to the giving tab on that person's profile, and then you can select giving statement. Now, one caveat to this is the giving statement it generates is actually a giving statement for the entire family, not the individual, which I think needs to change. I'm actually talking to our developers about that right now. So
Alrighty.
Won't change anytime soon, but eventually maybe so. All right.
Tamika asked, what would be the reason for locking the batch? Accountability.
Yeah.
Just making sure that nothing gets changed or edited later. Like you don't want to add a batch and then deposit that into the accounting screen and then someone go back and like select themselves and then add $1,000 to a donation so they can write off even more on their taxes when they didn't actually give that much.
Yeah.
We don't want to think of that happening at churches, but
we encounter it.
And so we have that to mitigate that.
What happens if a check comes in from the bank after 12/31? Do I include? No. If it comes in after, we can't include it because it's for the following year.
Yep.
So the card fees are a percentage plus an individual fee. So the way credit card works is 2.2% plus 30 cents. So if I donate $100 to church, and then it's credit card, it's $2.20 plus 30 cents. So $2.50 would be subtracted from that in my church's overall payout.
Yeah, so they take the 2.2% off of the total amount, and then whatever that is, they add 30 cents to that, and that's how much they take for the fee.
Heather, can I adjust the position of the header, the church name, and logo locations on the giving statement? Everything to customize there, Heather. I'll just show you real fast. We showed it a little earlier, but you go to your admin settings. Thank you.
Report settings. Yep.
And then these are all the different things you can adjust. So in terms of like offsetting things, you can adjust those here. So your name and address offset, you can do all that right here. And then the header and footer, that's kind of all built in, that's standard. You can't really, we have a predefined space for both the header and footer that is uneditable. Not edible, editable. Cool. And for some reason, her question is still showing up there, even though I said for it to go away.
That's okay.
So we'll pull
D.
another
Marks, you asked, is there a way to auto-populate family email addresses from individual email? There's not a way to like auto-populate it, but when you're entering a person's information on the people screen, you can, as you're adding them, you have the option of adding their email address and the family email. Just Control-C, Control-V, like just copy and paste that in.
Yeah. Okay, next question here is from Danielle.
When importing from CSV Givelify, there are non-members that give. You asked this earlier. I
think we answered it.
There's non-members that give. Is there a way to default any person automatically? If it automatically adds a person, so IDK who was added. Yeah, reach out to the support team if you have any questions on like how was this person added and why, or how to mitigate that for your specific situation, just to make sure they get you the right answer.
The answer to your question, Michelle, yes, it's still the case. So hopefully I answered your question. Debbie, my pastor told me you will send the contribution statement for the Stripe. Is that correct? Yeah, so anytime someone donates with ChurchTrac Online Giving, it's automatically going to show up there in the contribution statement unless you decided to delete it. It's going to be there. Christy, where are the blog posts? Yeah, that's a good question.
ChurchTrac.com. You can Google ChurchTrac blog. If you go to ChurchTrac.com, there's that toolbar at the top. the help resources, the blog is one of the options there. That takes you straight to our blog.
Well,
So,
there's that post you were just talking about
yeah,
Zelle that you literally
Zelle for
just
churches.
reposted. Yeah. So there you go. All right. Denise is asking, what status do you give offering in people's screen?
Status is in like tax deductible? Yeah, offering would definitely be tax deductible.
Well, I think they're talking more like active guests. It doesn't really matter, to be brutally honest. This status, in fact, it really comes down to how you use your database and like how you utilize active versus inactive and all that.
Yeah, that's internal. That's for you and your records and how you designate people. That's it. That's not something that's going to affect them and their contribution statements.
Jennifer, will contribution statements print for people that are archived? Yes, we answered that earlier, Jennifer. Christian, is there a text to give on ChurchTrac? If so, where we find it? It is. We do have text to give. You can enable it in Church Connect, and that is found when your people are donating online. Plus, if you're utilizing our texting with Twilio, then you can actually set it up to where people can text your church's number and they can text give, and then it walks them through that process as well, which is super cool. All right.
Cindy, if the default on adding a person during giving, why not make the default setting be contributor, not member? Well, you can decide that. When it comes to a default member status, I think you can actually set that in settings and automations. What the member status is as a default when you add them.
Yeah, and as far as member status goes, that's all customizable. You can go to any person's profile in ChurchTrac, edit that profile, and if you scroll down a hair, you see that member status, you can actually edit that list. And this is something big I always like to hit on too, just with people who are new to ChurchTrac, because it comes built in with like member and donor and prospect, I think. But you can actually customize this out and make it exactly what you want. And again, this is all internal stuff. It really just comes down to how you want to organize your database and stuff. But as far as how it affects giving and recording giving, it really doesn't. Alrighty, let's see here. So many great questions. We're at the home stretch. This one's from Kim. Can locate where you add the church logo to the giving statement. Yeah, Kim, go to settings and then go to admin settings in ChurchTrac. That's where you find that. It's
and
right
if you
there.
can't find that, that means you're not the administrator of the account.
Yeah.
You would have to ask whoever the administrator is.
Thank you for pointing that out, just because I forget sometimes that if you're not the admin, there's certain things you may not be seeing. Robert. So,
if we email all our contribution statements, is there a way to get a list of the reports that were sent, or do we just assume that the people from our people to include when you receive them? Again, when you do that, you'll get a report that will list everyone who did get it, whose email bounced, and who doesn't have an email address on file. So you won't have to assume. You'll know exactly who got it and who didn't.
A question from Chris, how do you track monies given to a specific memorial? That's going to be like a category overview report, probably is going to be the best one for you. Generate a couple different reports, see which one you like the most.
Yeah, create a category for that memorial, and then select that category when people make that donation. That way, over time, you can see how much was given to that. Anonymous asks, can I use the same ChurchTrac account for different churches? No.
No.
Nope. Let's see. Savannah asked, does a member see individual contribution on the app or family contribution?
It's actually a good question.
Gracious, I am totally blanking on that. I don't actually know.
Reach out to our support team.
Yeah, reach out to the support team. You just stumped us. Congratulations. I've not thought to look at that. I don't know.
I think I'm 99% certain that it's the individual giving. It's not going to show the family, it's the individual giving.
So Kim, you say the logo is there, but it's not showing on the giving statement. Well, that may be you go to the settings and automations, you go to admin settings if you have access to that, go to report settings in the middle. There you go. At the very bottom of that screen, it could be that the option to include the church logo on contribution statements has been turned off.
Yeah.
So make sure that that's switched on.
Do emails count towards our messaging numbers like SMS? No, they do not.
It's emails unlimited. Spring, don't worry about that. All right, he says, don't worry about that. Do statements have to be mailed or can they be handed to individual?
You can mail.
As long as they get the statement, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, and I've actually worked with a lot of churches where they've had people ahead of time opt in or opt out to getting physical statements. And so a lot of churches now are just doing an email statement. And if people request to only get it via email, so going paperless, so to speak, kind of like you do with your bank, you go paperless. You can do that too if you want to go down that realm. Is there a report that will break down the IRS deductible amount as well as the non-deductible amount? For instance, someone gives to the church
from his donor advised fund,
and also regular giving by personal check.
So again, non-deductible donations do not show up on a contribution statement, period. When it comes to breaking down, like if they gave by personal check or from a donor advised fund versus this versus that, that's all done by categories.
Yeah.
Create categories for those giving options so that you can delineate between them on the report.
Cheryl, this is a really good question. Like, what about reimbursement for materials purchased for repair work in a church? So that's all done. That's an accounting question because that's not really giving. That's more so of, hey, I need reimbursed for something. And so then you would actually write that as an expense in ChurchTrac accounting, which we'll talk about next week.
Yep. Terry, is there a way to lock batches in bulk? No.
Nope.
Lock batches one at a time. We don't want people accidentally locking a whole bunch all at once.
Will this training be available again? Yes, it will be available again in terms of rewatching the video, but in terms of doing a live stream on just giving, this is the only one until we do this again in 6 months or so.
Yep.
We do these like typically like twice a year on like the big screens and stuff. For our members who gave cash or online donations, the form of payment is not showing up on the statements. Do you know why?
Reach out to the support team. That should show up on their statement.
Is there a charge for text to give? No, Nicole, there is not a charge for text to give. Text to give is included with our giving.
But there is a transaction fee.
Yes,
it's the same as the credit and debit card. There will be 2.2% plus 30 cents for those donations. But you do not have to pay a charge for the text, is what Wes is saying.
Yeah. Well, I have officially ended the Q&A. It's gone.
It's done. It's empty. We cleared
Matt,
the queue.
we answered like, I have to look back at it later, but I think it was like 70 questions or something crazy. I think we just hit a record.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Like, I don't know about
Yeah.
you. And this was probably one of our most attended live streams in terms of just the sheer number of people, which is pretty wild. So
Yes.
This was a lot of fun,
It was a lot of fun.
We love this time of year because this is the time of year where we're doing a lot of these types of live streams and doing these Q&As and stuff. You know, unlike other companies that will just kind of pre-record a generic video and throw it out there and call it a live stream, we don't do that here at ChurchTrac. We actually go for reals live. We actually have a Q&A. We're not afraid to try to answer questions live, as you just saw. And occasionally you do stump us. But what's so great about our support teams, they're so fast. So if you do stump us, we'll just reach out to our support team and they get you an answer very quickly. Now, just a kind of last housekeeping thing. Next week, we are having our accounting live stream.
I just dropped the link in the chat.
Links in the chat. So that chat is still open, so you can grab that link and everything. It's so funny. Someone was just mentioning, glad to see you made it through the tornadoes. Yeah, because yesterday we were doing another live stream for our Getting Started workshop, and we almost didn't make it through that one because of the storms were crazy, but praise the Lord. But yeah, hold tight. We have so many live streams around the bend between the accounting, we have Church Connect, and a few others up our sleeve that we have through the coming weeks. And as always, if you need any help, just reach out to our support team and we'll be there to help you out in a jiffy. Well, Matt, this was fun.
This was a blast. Have a blessed day.
Yeah.